Good morning. Yesterday we looked at the line wise meaning in detail of the poem Let Me Not to the Marriage of True Minds by William Shakespeare. Now let us analyze the poem. First, we'll take a look at the themes of the poem. The theme of love and change. Over the course of Sonnet 116, the speaker makes a number of passionate claims about what love is and what it isn't. For the speaker, traditionally assumed to be Shakespeare himself and thus a man, true love does not change over time. Instead, it goes on with the same intensity forever. The speaker establishes this argument from the poem's opening lines, boldly declaring that love isn't really love at all if it bends or sways in response to roadblocks, meaning impediments. Instead, he argues that love weathers all storms. It's like a star that sailors use to navigate, providing an unmoving reference point they can use to plot their course across the globe. Love, then, is something that perseveres through impediments, obstacles, and difficulties without losing any of its passion or commitment. As the poem progresses, the speaker considers more kinds of change and extends his initial argument. In lines 9 and 10, he adds that true love does not falter, meaning hesitate or stumble, even as the beauty fades. Represented in the poem by the image of youthful rosy cheeks losing their vitality. Vitality means energy. Because love isn't primarily concerned with the body, it is not affected by aging. In lines 11 and 12, the speaker generalizes his argument even further by claiming that love does not change under any circumstances. It goes on, he claims, to the edge of doom. In other words, only when a lover dies does love finally change or end. The speaker is so confident in his argument that he is willing to issue a bet. If he is wrong, then love itself is impossible, and no man has ever loved. In making this bet, he puts down his own behavior as evidence. Here, the speaker acknowledges that he isn't simply an observer of love, but himself a lover. His own relationships might be measured against the standard he is advanced here, and he offers confident assurance that his love does live up to this standard. This means that beneath the sonnet's generalizations about what love is and isn't, the poem is itself a declaration of love. At this point, it is important to note that this sonnet is part of a sequence of love poems traditionally believed to be addressed to a young man. Their relationship, as depicted in the sonnets as a whole, is tumultuous, full of infidelity and gusts of passion. There is considerable disagreement among scholars as to whether this context should affect the interpretation of Sonnet 116. If it doesn't, the poem is a powerful statement about love, addressed to all readers in all times. But if it does, the poem comes across instead as an attempt to repair a damaged relationship, a personal plea directed to a particular person. The speaker is trying to prove to the young man that he does love him in spite of everything and that his love won't change. For a generous reader, this will be a romantic statement of affection. For a more skeptical reader, it raises some questions. The speaker hasn't just described love as something unchanging. The poem paints a picture of love as a sort of eternal idea. Eternal means forever, far from the messy reality of real life people's lives. It's a star, unattainable and inhuman. In a way, this image of love ceases, means stops, to be something that humans can actually build and instead becomes something they can only admire from a distance, like a star in the sky. The speaker has engaged in hyperbole, meaning exaggeration, जिसे हिंदी में हम अतिशयोक्ति कहते हैं, to defend his position, invoking all lovers in all times in line 14. This, along with the poem's idealism, might make the speaker feel a bit unreliable. Some readers may wonder how realistic the speaker's account of love really is and find it grandiose instead of intimate. The poem's claims about love can't necessarily be taken on face value then. They should be evaluated for their sincerity and plausibility. And in these respects, they may be found wanting. Wanting means lacking. Sonnet 116, Let Me Not to the Marriage of True Minds. Now we'll take a look at the symbols. First, the symbol of mark. When the speaker mentions a mark in line 5, he has in mind a specific kind of mark, a sea mark, that is, a beacon or a lighthouse. These structures serve to warn sailors to avoid certain areas filled with reefs or rocky outcroppings on which they might run aground. कहने का मतलब है कि रात के अंधेरे में जब जहाज़ समुद्र को पार कर रहा होता है और अगर किसी क्षेत्र में पत्थर हों या चट्टानें हों जो पानी में दिखाई न दें, तो एक ऊंची चट्टान पर किनारे की तरफ एक लंबा मीनार बनाई जाती है जिसमें एक लाइट जलती है रात को, और वो लाइट नाविकों को चेतावनी देती है कि उस दिशा में न आएं क्योंकि उधर पत्थर या चट्टानें हैं। और अगर वो लाइट ना हो तो समुद्र में वो जहाज़ खंडित हो जाएंगे या टूट सकते हैं उन चट्टानों से टकराकर। This warning is potentially life-saving information during a bad storm or in the dark, when a ship might otherwise enter dangerous waters without realizing it. The lighthouse and the beacon are thus frequently symbols for positive forces that guide people through the dark and difficult patches of their life, showing them dangers they might not otherwise see. By associating love with such marks, then, the poem argues that love itself is a solid guiding force in people's lives. Second is the symbol of the star. After comparing love to a beacon or lighthouse in line 5, the speaker compares it to a star in line 7. In many ways, the two metaphors are similar. Metaphor means comparison. आगे उसकी detail परिभाषा या definition आपको दी जाएगी. Like the lighthouse, Renaissance sailors used stars to help them navigate, meaning cross the sea, measuring their own position against the height of the stars. However, There are important differences between the two symbols, that is, between the mark and the star. A lighthouse is man made, something you can touch. Stars, by contrast, are distant, बहुत दूर हैं, inhuman and unreachable. In invoking the star as a metaphor for love, Shakespeare plays on an ancient philosophical tradition which dates back to the Greek philosopher Plato. In this tradition, there are different kinds of love arranged in a hierarchy. The highest kind of love exceeds human comprehension, meaning human understanding. Like the star in Sonnet 116, its worth is unknown. The star thus serves as a symbol for a kind of ideal perfect love beyond what anyone might achieve in a real relationship. The symbol of sickle. A sickle is a sharp hooked agricultural tool जिसको हम खेतों में काम लेते हैं, हसिया कहते हैं, घास और धान काटने के जो काम आता है. Before the invention of mechanical reapers, it was used to harvest grains and cereals which a farmer would bend down to cut at the root. In traditional depictions, Death carries a sickle or a scythe. He is the harvester of souls who, like the farmer, cuts down people at the root. The sickle is thus often used as a symbol of mortality or of the fragility, meaning the weakness of human life, which can be cut short easily and unexpectedly. This is how the sickle is being used in this poem too. Here, time uses its sickle much as death would. It harvests youthful beauty, represented by the rosy lips and cheeks in line 9, and transforms the body with age, such as harvesting a lush field reduces it to a barren place. एक हरे भरे खेत को जब आप धान काट देते हैं तो वो एक सूखा बियाबान बंजर सी ज़मीन हो जाती है. Love, according to the speaker, is immune to time and its sickle. It will not diminish, meaning reduce, or grow weak with age, and is stronger than the frail mortal body. Sonnet 116, Let me not to the marriage of true minds. Let us now look at some poetic devices and figurative language in the poem. The first is hyperbole. First, a look at the definition. Hyperbole is a figure of speech in which a writer or speaker exaggerates for the sake of emphasis. Exaggerate यानी कि अतिशयोक्ति में एक्सप्रेस करता है, बात को बढ़ा चढ़ा कर कहता है, स्पेशली जब वो अपनी बात को जोर देकर कहना चाह रहा हो. Hyperbolic statements are usually quite obvious exaggerations intended to emphasize a point rather than be taken literally. For example, in the hyperbolic statement, my backpack weighs a ton, the speaker does not actually think the backpack weighs a ton. First of all, a backpack is the bag that students use nowadays, जो अपनी पीठ पर टांक लेते हैं वो. And टन एक यूनिट ऑफ मेजरिंग वेट है, वजन तोलने का एक यूनिट है. Nor does he or she intend the listener to think so. The backpack wearer simply wants to communicate through the use of hyperbole that he or she is carrying a very heavy load. The speaker of Sonnet 116 has a number of significant ideas about love, ideas that are worth taking seriously and evaluating. However, his presentation of those ideas does not always have the same seriousness and credibility. At several moments in the poem, the speaker lapses into hyperbole, making rather some outlandish claims. For example, in the poem's final lines, the speaker says that his ideas about love are so solid, so indisputable, that if he is wrong, no one has ever been in love before. This is a broad and unsupported generalization, a generalization which includes the whole of human history until at present. This would be difficult to prove in any kind of convincing fashion, but of course, the speaker is not particularly interested in proving anything. Rather, he wants to impress the reader or the listener with the force of his passion and his rhetorical commitment. That is, with his willingness to stray into hyperbole. However, as is often the case with hyperbole, the extravagance of the speaker's words may have the opposite effect. Instead of building confidence in the speaker, it may cause us to question his passion, which might sound a bit inflated, pretentious or puffed up. यानी ऐसा लगता है कि जो स्पीकर है वो केवल दिखावा कर रहा है, उसका प्यार इतना गहरा नहीं है जितना वो जताना चाह रहा है. This final moment of hyperbole is in keeping with the tone of the poem so far, in that the speaker has been very rigid and idealistic in his description of love throughout. Love is an ever fixed mark that never falters. In fact, it lasts even to the edge of doom, that is, until death or doomsday. One could argue that this idea of love is so unrealistic as to be meaningless. All relationships change and have the potential for disturbances, even if minor. To say that relationships based on real love never feel even the slightest tremor of trouble seems a bit naive. यानी कि ये बचकाना सोच है. अगर आप ये कहते हैं कि सच्चे प्यार में कभी कोई परेशानी या रुकावट या मतभेद नहीं होता, ऐसा संभव नहीं है. इंसानों में मतभेद बिल्कुल सहज और स्वाभाविक होता है. Again, though the speaker wants to impress upon the reader the sheer force of his own beliefs, and as it follows, the intensity of his own love for the potential recipient of the poem. How someone interprets this final moment of seeming exaggeration then reflects on their feelings about the poem as a whole. Whether they think that the speaker is being sincere and genuinely romantic in his efforts to describe a transcendent love which human beings should strive for, or if he is being so dramatic that his words lose some of their power. The next device is alliteration. The definition of alliteration is: alliteration is a figure of speech in which the same sound repeats in a group of words, such as the B sound in Bob brought the box of bricks to the basement. यहाँ पर B की जो ध्वनि है वो रिपीट हो रही है. The repeating sound must occur either in the first letter of each word or in the stressed syllables of those words. Sonnet 116 uses alliteration in several key places to reinforce its arguments. Alliteration helps the speaker take sides in the poem's implicit conflict between true love and false love, and the speaker is firmly on the side of true love. In the first three lines of the poem, for example, the reader finds two contrasting patterns of alliteration using M and A sounds. इधर ध्यान दीजिएगा. Let me not to the marriage of true minds. ये तो एम साउंड रिपीट हो रही है. Admitted impediments. Love is not love which alters when it alteration finds. लाइन 2 and 3 में इस यहाँ पर ए साउंड रिपीट हो रहा है. In the first line, the strong M sounds create a link between marriage, true minds, and the speaker himself, using the word me. This pattern of sound stands in contrast to the repeated A sounds that appear in the next two lines. Notably, the words that start with A all deal with the failure and collapse of true love. Alterations admitted into a relationship which, the speaker argues, should not ever change. By aligning himself with the words that alliterate on the M sound, this, the speaker thus subtly hints at his own position. He is, or at least wants to be, on the side of true love. He stands apart from the forces that alter or change or bend it. In this way, alliteration not only reinforces the argument of the poem, it also signals the speaker's position in relation to that argument. Another powerful moment of alliteration that occurs in the poem's final line with the repetition of N sounds. There is actually a bit of consonance here too, in the final N of man, which we have also highlighted in the line below. I never writ nor no man ever loved. इसमें N sound repeat हो रही है. This makes the declaration of the line all the more emphatic. These negative words, never, nor, no, become a repeated denial, a sort of no, 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 that adds force to the speaker's assertion that if he is wrong, then that means nobody has ever been in love. The next device is metaphor. The definition of metaphor is: a metaphor is a figure of speech that compares two different things by saying that one thing is the other. The comparison in a metaphor can be stated explicitly, meaning obviously or clearly, as in the sentence, love is a battlefield. Other times, the writer may make this equation between two things implicitly, meaning hinting at it indirectly, as in, he was wounded by love. Wounded यानी कि चोट लगी थी, उसको प्यार में चोट लगी थी. The comparisons created by metaphor are not meant to be taken literally. Rather, metaphors are figurative. वो केवल सांकेतिक हैं. वो आपको केवल बात को समझने के लिए इस्तेमाल किए जाते हैं. They create meaning beyond the literal meanings of their words. For instance, these examples are of course not saying that love is actually a field of battle. यानी कि लव इज़ अ बैटलफील्ड का मतलब ये नहीं है कि युद्ध का मैदान है प्यार असल में, और दैट द पर्सन एक्चुअली गॉट अ फिजिकल इंजरी फ्रॉम लव, या जो प्यार या मोहब्बत में था उसके कोई शारीरिक चोट नहीं पहुंची है. इंस्टेड दे कैप्चर हाउ लव कैन बी पेनफुल, अ स्ट्रगल, even a showdown between opponents, and as many good metaphors do, through their comparison they make description more vivid, more relatable, or reveal new ways of seeing the world. In Sonnet 116, the speaker presents true love as an ethereal, almost unintelligible force. Ethereal मतलब जिसको छू नहीं सकते, जो बहुत धुएं की तरह हो या धुंध की तरह हो, जो हाथ में ना आए. He thus searches throughout the poem for language to express what true love is and how it operates in people's lives. Faced with such challenge, the speaker turns to metaphor, comparing love to a series of objects that suggest its power and its constancy. For example, in lines 5 to 8, the speaker compares love to two separate things, a star and a lighthouse. This is what the speaker means by mark, referencing a sea mark. There are important similarities between these two comparisons. In the Renaissance, sailors used both stars and lighthouses to navigate, meaning to cross the sea. Both objects helped sailors pass safely through dangerous waters and to chart courses across the vast oceans. But there are also important differences between these objects. Lighthouses are man made, stars obviously are not. Lighthouses can be bought and sold. One can put a price on them. Stars cannot. Their worth, that is the worth of the star, as the poem says, is unknown. Stars are also unreachable, a guiding force that is nevertheless well beyond people's ability to actually touch or grasp, meaning to hold. These metaphors thus convey somewhat contradictory things about love. It is and is not man made. Its price can and cannot be fixed. These paradoxes are ultimately appropriate to the speaker's ambitions. Paradoxes यानी कि विरोधाभास, जहाँ विपरीत बातें एक साथ कही जा रही हों. It is trying to describe, he is trying to describe something beyond human comprehension. It only makes sense that it would be full of complication and apparent paradoxes, which metaphor helps him bring out. The reference to marriage in the first line could also reasonably be thought of as a metaphor. Minds, of course, cannot literally stand at an altar and get married, though marriage can also reference a broader idea of mingling, coming together. The use of the word marriage underscores the steadfast connection between true lovers whose marriage extends beyond the physical ceremony to encompass a more spiritual union, a true meeting of the minds. Next device is personification. Definition. Personification is a type of figurative language in which non human things are described as having human attributes, as in the sentence, "The rain poured down on the wedding guests, indifferent to their plans." Describing the rain as indifferent is an example of personification because rain can't be indifferent nor can it feel any other human emotion. यानी कि जब किसी बेजान चीज़ या विचार को हम एक व्यक्तित्व या एक व्यक्ति का रूप देने की कोशिश करते हैं, वो टेक्निक पर्सोनिफिकेशन कहलाती है साहित्य में. However, saying that the rain feels indifferently poetically emphasizes the true cruel timing of the rain. Personification can help writers to create more vivid descriptions, to make readers see the world in new ways, and to more powerfully capture the human experience of the world, since people really do often interpret the non human entities of the world as having human traits. In line 9, the speaker of Sonnet 116 personifies time. Time is not simply something that flows along, it is active and destructive, an entity made into a proper noun with its capital T. It most specifically deemed a he in lines 10 and 11, wields a sickle as it harvests human beauty, where time is understood to be a farmer cutting or a reaper cutting the crop. This is a complex and fanciful way of describing the way that people age and, as they do, lose their youthful beauty. In the process, it gives time unusual powers. It has agency, the capacity to act and shape the world. Notably, however, the speaker does not have the power to resist time, nor do the people he describes. They cannot prevent time from harvesting rosy lips and cheeks. The best response to this rampaging force, meaning destructive force, then is simply to love, since love alone is not time's fool. In personifying time, then, the speaker also implicitly marks the limits of human agency and amplifies the power and dignity of love. It alone allows people to contest the power of time. Love is also personified throughout the poem. Given human qualities and agency that help the speaker define what love actually is and is not. Love cannot literally look at storms, nor bend, alter, or be a fool. Instead, the speaker grants love human like attributes. In order to help readers understand exactly how the speaker thinks of love and how that love functions in the world. Now we look at form, meter, and rhyme scheme of Sonnet 116, that is, Let Me Not to the Marriage of True Minds. We'll take a break now and continue in the next session. Thank you.